Welcome to the Jurassic Park Mega Reviews series, where we cover all of the movies in the franchise to date. And here we are, starting with Jurassic Park. Ah yes, Jurassic Park. I was one of those irritating 10-year-old kids that packed into movie cinemas in droves to see this movie when it was released. And to say that everybody was talking about it is an understatement. The whole world was spellbound by this flick, and for very good reasons. Not only was it an all-around fantastic movie, based off an equally fantastic novel, it was like the Avatar of the 90s, only much, much better. In the same kind of way that Avatar was the first movie that really dived headfirst into 3D, Jurassic Park was the first movie that fully dived into CGI. It's kind of hard to imagine now because CGI is such a common thing today, it's something that we actually want to see less of rather than more in our movies. But when this movie came out, nobody had ever really seen special effects at this level before. Sure, we've seen special effects and CGI for like Terminator 2 or creating non-human-like characters, but the dinosaurs were a whole different ballgame because they had to look real. They had to look like actual animals in our world, and they do look real. So a lot of the awe and wonder that we felt in seeing these creatures come to life on the big screen was the awe and wonder at seeing these special effects. It was a huge part of what made this the phenomenon that it was. In fact, many people have said that Jurassic Park is the perfect touchstone for all special effects, and I agree. It's the perfect blend and the perfect balance of CGI and practical effects. This should be the Bible for all movies, so that they know where the line is between when CGI should stop and when practical effects should begin. Spielberg went to painstaking effort to get the best possible effect that he could, because he knew that if the dinosaurs didn't work, the movie wouldn't work. And it was worth the effort because they still look real to this day. Hell, a lot of these effects still look better now than a lot of movies do today. The draw of seeing these new effects was both a blessing for this movie and a curse for its sequels. Because we all know that much like Avatar's 3D, the wow factor of CGI wore off pretty quickly. It's kind of surprising that we still call them special effects because they're really not that special. They're actually quite common. We should call them common effects. So because of this, the other movies in the series don't have the novelty factor of the CGI to fall back on, which led to all of us noticing a lot of the problems that the films had more. But we'll cover those when we get to them. But it seems that Jurassic World has turned this in a clever direction. The filmmakers said that they had an image in their head of a young kid in front of a glass window between him and a dinosaur, and he's just got his back completely turned to the dinosaur and is twittering away on his phone. Hence why the park feels the need to create a new dinosaur, to get people's attention again. They said that that image has kind of influenced the whole atmosphere of how they create the park. And that fits in perfectly with our feelings about special effects in movies now. It doesn't impress us anymore, so movies are constantly trying to take it up a notch to keep us interested. We've gone from wow to meh. So it's a clever way for the new movie to sort of deal with that issue, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it. So let's get into this movie, the original Jurassic Park. Since we all know the story so well, let's focus on some of the other things that you might not have noticed but add a surprisingly large amount of detail to the story, and other stuff that are just kind of weird little things. Let's do it! Ironically, a lot of the little things are related to Dennis Nedry. Excuse me. His backstory, at least in the movie, in the book it might be different, is he's a slimy bad guy who sabotages the park in an effort to steal dinosaur embryos for a rival company because he likes money and he thinks Hammond is underpaying him.
I will not get drawn into another financial debate with you, Dennis. I really will not.
But then there is this line.
I don't blame people for their mistakes, but I do ask that they pay for them. Thanks, Dad.
That line has always kind of puzzled me. What mistake is Hammond referring to there? Did Nedry do something wrong so Hammond docked his pay for it? Or maybe Nedry did something wrong while working with a different company so he was fired, and that's why Hammond was able to hire him at a cheaper rate? I don't know, it just seems kind of odd to me. Also, what I like is also Nedry's plan of stealing the embryos and getting to the boat and how that all goes wrong, and his subsequent death, is actually an interesting twist on the movie's theme that nature can cannot be contained or controlled. Nedry is obviously a clever guy, but what was it that ruined his carefully laid plans? Sure, the Dilophosaur finished him off, but his plans were undone long before that, and all it took was a simple thunderstorm. Nedry didn't expect to be racing to the boats in the middle of a torrential thunderstorm, and that's what ruined everything for him. All nature had to do was throw him a little bit of unpredictable weather, and that was it. It fits with the whole theme of nature cannot be predicted, it cannot be controlled. Kinda cool. Did you also notice that next to Nedry's computer is this picture? Now, science buffs will recognize this guy as Robert Oppenheimer, who was the main guy behind the construction of the first ever atomic bomb. And the fact that Nedry kind of idolizes him says a lot about his character. Oppenheimer was a guy that built the bomb and focused only on that task without thinking much about the consequences of what he was actually building. A similar mentality must have been present in everyone who had a hand in creating Jurassic Park here. Nobody thought that much about the consequences of bringing dinosaurs back to life in the modern age. But unlike Nedry, Oppenheimer eventually did feel the consequences of creating the bomb, in fact on a very, very personal level. He spent much of the remainder of his life working in the UN, trying to limit the stockpiling of nuclear weapons in an effort to kind of stuff the genie back into the bottle, so to speak. There's a documentary about his life here on YouTube that I'll link in the description. It's quite an interesting and a bit of a tragic tale, so I'll link it below if you want to check it out. But who knows, if Nedry looked up to him, maybe Nedry had more going on under the surface than any of us realize.
Perhaps there's more to Newman than meets the eye.
No, there's less. I've looked into his eyes. He's pure evil.
Maybe he's an enigma, a mystery wrapped in a riddle.
Yeah, he's a mystery wrapped in a Twinkie.
There's a cool little bit of Spielbergian character contrast in this moment where Malcolm takes out his flask of alcohol and offers Grant a drink. He refuses. Later on, just before the T-Rex attacks, Grant is filling his canteen with rainwater and then he offers Malcolm a drink of that. It shows the difference between these two guys in personality and lifestyle. Alcohol versus rainwater. A similar contrast is also shown where at the beginning of the movie, the car door with the Jurassic Park logo opens and it's all shiny and new looking. Then at the end of the movie, the shot is reversed with the door being splattered in mud, showing that this illusion of what the park is has now been broken. Spielberg's really great with that kind of stuff. Do you remember your reaction when you first saw the T-Rex pouncing on the raptors right before they were about to kill our main characters? Most likely it was something along the lines of this. But some people have said, how come the raptors couldn't hear the T-Rex coming since she always makes the ground shake? Well, obviously the Rex can tiptoe around and be stealthy when she needs to be. How else could she hunt? She snuck up on these Gallimimuses. Besides, I always look at that ground tremor thing to be more of like a display of territoriality and dominance. Kind of like a lion's roar. If you can hear it, it means you're in his territory. But if you can smell the lion's scent around the place, then you're really close to the lion's den, so you better head the other way. Same thing with the T-Rex. If you can hear her roar, you're in her territory. But if you can feel the ground tremor, then you're really close to the nest, so you better leave. And if you think about it, when the Rex breaks through the fence, she's now entering a new territory that she's never been in before. So I reckon the reason she was stomping around and roaring so much is she's claiming that territory. She's letting everyone in the neighborhood know the new boundaries. So she only stomps around when she's doing that. She doesn't do it when she's hunting, because that would scare everything away. Something in the movie that can't be explained, however, is the sick Triceratops. Its purpose in the story is just basically to separate Sattler from the rest of the group. But apart from that, what's the point of it? It's kind of like played as like a mini mystery as to why this thing is sick, like it's something very important to the story, but then it never comes up again. At first, we think it's sick because it ate the toxic plants, but when Sattler goes through all the droppings, she says that there's no trace of the plant.
You're right. There's no trace of lilac berries. So odd, though.
So why was the Triceratops sick? The only thing I can really think of is maybe it was in the process of changing genders. Grant discovers later on that the frog DNA they were given has allowed them the ability to change sex in order to breed. Is that the reason the Triceratops was sick? Because she was growing a set of male parts?
You will remember to wash your hands before you eat anything.
Maybe there's a different place on the dinosaur you should be shining that light. I wouldn't imagine you would have to look very hard to find something that shouldn't be there, if you know what I'm saying. Does any of this nitpicking matter? No, it's just pointless nitpicking. And here's some more. This guy, who gets killed at the start of the movie, changes race when he falls off this crate here. He's a white guy when he hits the ground, but then he turns black when the raptor grabs him. I kind of feel like I should put in a joke here, but every joke I can think of ends up being extraordinarily racist. So let's talk about the differences between the book and the movie then, shall we? I should probably point out that I haven't read the book. I've just got these from doing research. So I'm sure there's going to be a ton of other differences between the book and the movie, but here is what I consider to be the biggest ones. Firstly, in the book, Michael Crichton, or Crichton, or whatever his name is, described Hammond as an evil Walt Disney, whereas in the movie, Hammond is a good Walt Disney. Hammond also dies in the book, being eaten alive by those little critter dinosaurs that you see in the second movie. He willfully and knowingly covers up the death of our reverse Michael Jackson worker here. He doesn't care when his own grandkids are lost in the park fighting for their lives, and he's overall just a massive jerk. Movie Hammond is much more likable. He's not evil, he's just kinda naive, but his intentions are always good, and he does care about his grandkids quite a lot. In fact, the original ending for this movie was very different, and it revolved around his redemption. When everyone was cornered by the raptors in the foyer, it was going to be John Hammond who shows up with a shotgun and saves the day, shooting the raptors at the last second. But Spielberg decided to change it to the T-Rex because he knew that the T-Rex would be everyone's favorite and we would want to see at least one more scene of it before the credits roll. And he was 100% right. This ending was fantastic. It was the perfect ending for the movie. But as awesome as this ending is, part of me still would kind of have liked to seen the ending with John Hammond, because it is set up. He hears them fighting off the raptors and is concerned for his grandkids.
Children all right?
The children are fine.
It's gonna come through the glass!
He's right next to the locker that's full of guns. Plus, earlier, Sattler tells him that the dream of Jurassic Park that he's holding on to is just an illusion, and that what really matters is the people they care about. So for him to show up at the end and shoot the raptors would be a great way of bringing all of that around full circle to show the lesson that he has learned. We do still kind of get to see that at the end, and also with him in the next movie, which is something I liked in The Lost World. But still, it would have been great to see that moment for Hammond's character. But hey, it's still better than him getting torn apart by dino critters in the book, so I wouldn't complain too much. Call me sentimental if you like, but I just kind of like stories where the bad guy, instead of being killed, he's able to sort of learn his lesson and change. I always find that much more powerful. Maybe that's why I want to see that scene so much. Another big change from the book is the lawyer character Donald Gennaro, who for a lot of book readers was their favorite character.
In the book, he's still a lawyer, but he's one that is skeptical of the dinosaur zoo situation, as well as being a muscular hero with children of his own. He goes back into the park after the T-Rex accident and tries to find the children and Dr. Grant. He also goes one-on-one with a raptor and defeats it with nothing more than a handheld weapon and brute strength. He winds up living in the novel and doing justice to lawyer stereotypes everywhere.
They basically Frankensteined him in the movie. They chopped him up into little pieces, and they distributed all of his traits to all of the other characters. Most of the good and heroic traits go to Grant, Malcolm, and particularly Dr. Sattler. Perhaps because they wanted to have their primary female character being more proactive, while at the same time a number of negative traits of other characters were all put onto him.
There's also a guy named Ed Regis in the book.
The character was eliminated in the movie, but his character traits were imprinted onto Gennaro.
This character is actually a slimy Jurassic Park employee instead of a lawyer, but he meets a similar demise.
So at the end of the day, we could say that movie Gennaro shares pretty much nothing in common with his book counterpart apart from his job and his name. I can't help but wonder if Spielberg has some kind of prejudice against lawyers, because not only does he strip away all the positive aspects of book Gennaro and give them to all the other characters, he also actively emphasizes the negative lawyer stereotype several times in this movie.
You're meant to come down here and defend me against these characters, and the only one I've got on my side is the blood-sucking lawyer.
Thank you.
Actually, the mechanical shark that was used in Jaws was actually nicknamed Bruce after Spielberg's lawyer.
Hello.
Well, hi!
Name's Bruce.
Finally, in the book, there was loads more dinosaur types and loads more action scenes. Michael Crichton never intended to write a follow-up book, so he just kind of went all in with this one. But a lot of those moments that were left out of this movie eventually did make it into the others with varying degrees of success. The little critter dinosaurs, the pterodactyls, there was even a raptor that had a mutation that allowed it to change its skin color, very much like the D-Rex in Jurassic World is said to be able to do, camouflage itself. So what else can I say? Jurassic Park, a classic and timeless film, and it holds an important place in film history as a hallmark of special effects. And it certainly set the bar high for The Lost World, which we will cover same time next week. And now, a word from our sponsors. Yeah, believe it or not, this episode actually does have a sponsor. Can you believe it? Well, that sponsor being Opinion Outpost, which I am very happy to present here. Opinion Outpost is a website that does a lot of like market research type stuff and testing of like what does and doesn't work in advertising, etc. But the reason I think you guys will be interested in checking it out is when you sign up and do one of their questionnaires, it's free, of course, but it also earns you points that you can then redeem for things like iTunes vouchers, so you can download music, Amazon cards, you know, cool stuff like that you'd be interested in. So it's a way of sort of like earning those so you can buy stuff. And each time that you do one of their questionnaires, you go into the running to win a $5,000 prize that they give away every 3 months. And the more questionnaires that you do, the more chance there is that you're going to end up winning. It's kind of like the Hunger Games, except that you don't have to be hungry to play, or kill people, or wear flaming dresses. Actually, yeah, it's nothing like the Hunger Games at all. But I've done a couple of these quizzes myself. They usually take about 10 to 15 minutes to do. And if you go to the website by clicking on the link that's in the description below, you get a $2 bonus, so you can redeem your points to get a prize much quicker. So click on that link, check it out, and you might just get some cool stuff. So thanks for watching, and if you're from the future, you can click on any of the other videos here in the series right now. I'm Bandit, this is Bandit Incorporated, and until next time, I will see you guys in the comments.